Army, and a very happy Transformation Tuesday. Today is going to be a very impactful day, to say the least. And I'm really excited to share with you today's guest because let me tell you something. Not only he is fit, not only he is energetic, he's also extremely wise, and I'm really excited to share this beautiful human with you. So before we get this party started, I've got a question for you guys who are live with us. My question for you is, what are you grateful for today? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. And in the meantime, let me introduce to you our beautiful guest today. Steve Krivda has coached hundreds of people globally, from small business owners, CEOs, and high-level executive teams. Through his experience, he has become the authority in the art of coaching, training leaders to duplicate their success for increased revenue, efficiency, and productivity. ES Army, I know we've had plenty of conversations about productivity, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to share with you this beautiful human today. Also, he is a Zig Ziglar and a John Maxwell coach. As some of you guys know, we've been studying John Maxwell for a really long time, so I'm just thrilled for today's conversation. And most of all, his proudest accomplishments are being a husband to his best friend, Danielle, dad of two young men, now teenagers. Steve resides in Naples, Florida, and volunteers his time working with the youth at a local middle and high school sports team. In addition, Steve is a motivational speaker, which gives him a great pride to change lives in a short amount of time. So that being said, let's go change some lives today. Steve, welcome to the show.
Man, thank you so much for that. It's so awesome to be here with you, Sarah. And it's what a cool introduction. You know, sometimes I sit back, I'm like, who are they bringing out?
Yeah, it's you. And so we're going to take a lot of twists and turns today, and just a couple of responses from the audience. Things that they're grateful for. And Steve, I'd love for you to share. What are you grateful for today?
I love that. I'm grateful to be here with you. I was just going to say that, you know, I kind of jumped into the call right at the top of the hour, and Sarah has been so awesome. She didn't read me the riot act. She was super nice and very full of grace, which is nice, and mercy. So I'm grateful for you on how you are with me just now. And I'm grateful to be here and this opportunity. You know, I wake up each day. My wife leaves the house. She gives me a kiss. She does bar studio, BARRE.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of the instructors there. And then a little while later, I wake our boys up and we go to the gym together, the two of them. One will be 14, one will be 16, one is 16. And so I start my day with them, with my family. And yeah, that's probably my top gratitude marks right there.
So what I'm hearing you say is one of your quality moments with your boys is actually working out together.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm curious, because obviously I'm not a parent yet, but go ahead and drop a P in the chat if you're a parent, if you're watching us live. I'd love to know tell me the experience of what is it like to work out with your kids?
It's pretty incredible. They started years ago. I think they were both probably around the same time, 6 and 8 years old. And I'm not, they weren't heavy lifting. I didn't stunt their growth. But they just picked weights up while I was out in the garage with them. And that's how we connect. You know, they get to see a different side of me in the gym. I'm a very calm, fun person outside of the gym. At home, I'm very, loving and caring. But in the gym, there's that different switch that I like to put on. And so I watch them. They're developing their switch. And so to see them work out and to see them, I speak to myself when I work out. I say things like, keep going. Let's go here. Don't quit. Keep your feet on the treadmill. Don't put the weights down yet. We still have one more set. And they see how I speak to myself, and they've adopted it.
Mm.
So what's really kind of cool is it's the working out thing is great. It's really powerful quality time, but they're taking that mentality and they're moving in other areas of their life. And that's what's really kind of awesome because they're up at 5 a.m. with me. They volunteer to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're at the gym at 6, and we spend an hour there sweating it out.
I love it. Okay, so I know I'm going a little like off-roading real quick, and I promise you guys I'm gonna get back in my main lane. I'm curious to know, have you always worked out, or how did you get into working out?
I was overweight for a lot of
Oh,
my early stages of life.
okay, let's talk
At
about that.
let's see, in 5th grade, I started putting on weight
Okay,
rapidly.
okay,
uh, and I stayed, they don't call them these jeans anymore, but I used to go shopping for jeans and I had to be in a husky section. That's what they used to call it. That's what
okay,
they called it.
husky.
The husky section of Sears or JC Penney's. And it was probably later in high school I started working out a little bit because I had a friend of mine that was really a big guy. And it wasn't until I got into martial arts. I was
Mm,
21, 22 is when I started paying attention. I was smoking at the time too. It's really
okay,
unhealthy. And it was my instructor was like, "Man, do you have asthma?" And I was like, "Maybe." And I didn't want to admit to anybody because nobody knew I smoked. And so I quit smoking, started getting in shape, and I started feeling better about myself. And I was able to see a different person. At first, it was very aesthetic. And
yeah,
then I started seeing the guy that was in here that was able to come out
mm,
as my confidence started to grow and create something different in my life. So no, I
okay,
did not always work out.
okay. So 21 was the year when
Yeah,
everything switched for you.
yeah.
Okay, so maybe this is related. How, so you're a leadership coach. Like, I know for sure you didn't just wake up one morning and say, "Oh yeah, I want to be a leadership coach when I grow up." Like, how did you get into quote unquote like leadership, and what the heck is leadership coaching in the first place?
It's two great questions.
Yeah.
So I actually, I actually had a coach deep dive with me on this topic a few years back,
Yeah.
and where it started was way back in martial arts.
Okay.
And I really uncoordinated. I was not athletic at all. Couldn't run to save my life, literally. And so, like, when my instructor was speaking so much life into me, he's like, "Man, you can do this." He's like, "You only think you see the person that you are. You're not that person. You're the person you decide to be." And those are the types of things he talked about all the time. And he's like, "You just have to." He's like, "If you can't believe in yourself, take my belief in you." And that's how my instructor spoke life,
Mm,
right? Borrow my belief.
or my
And
belief. That's what we tell our people all the
yeah,
time.
buddy, right? So
Yeah.
like, and as I started pulling this in more, I started ranking through the belts and getting further up and getting better and all this kind of stuff. And I started reaching down and pulling people with me. Didn't know that that's what I was doing. I just saw somebody and I was like, "Hey, if you take your right foot and pivot it, like another 45 degrees and do your kick again and see what shows up there." And they're like, "Oh, that's so much better. It doesn't hurt my hips," and so forth and so forth. And I was like, so I just kept expanding out from there. And eventually I became one of their actually the lead instructor there and was running the school. And there were people there that were coming not to learn how to fight, to create something different in their life, create confidence
Mm,
and see themselves differently. So that's where
okay.
the shift started way back then.
Okay, so here's the kicker. This is really cool how we're actually coming back full circle really quickly. So if I'm understanding you correctly, what I'm hearing you say is that your journey with martial arts has gotten you into leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You guys, if you're paying close attention, this is what you need to understand. I feel like leadership is like this hoopla or that's like high in the sky, and that only it's like if you're, like a CEO or like, like a part of the C-suite team, then, like leadership is for you. I believe that leadership touches every part of our lives, and it allows us to create a meaningful lives for ourselves and for others. And what we do is we teach people discipline, which
Mm.
is basically leadership, right? And most people think that what we do is we just get people fit. So what I'm hearing you
Mm.
say is that what you found is that martial arts, for example, is a vehicle for people to lead themselves to create something different in their lives. Yes?
Oh, absolutely.
So good. Okay. So let's talk about skill sets within the realm of leadership, because you've worked with a lot of different people from all walks of lives. And if you could pinpoint like the top 5 skills that you see leaders portray from what you've seen that allows them to create a meaningful life of influence, what would those skills be?
I say that one more time. I missed part of that.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Yes, there you go.
Oh, okay, cool. So if you could share just from your vast work throughout life, what have you seen to be the 5 most influential skills that some of the top leaders in any walk of life portray?
Whew, that's a really powerful question. So I have a distinction in leadership, and we have these different levels of leadership. So I'll spend just a quick moment there. Is that we have the old style of leadership, which I think you're definitely younger than I am, but when I was growing up through employment, there was call it dictatorship leadership, right? Boot on the neck type of leadership. That worked really well for a while. It worked really good for me because that's how I grew up in my house too. My dad was like, "This is the way things are done."
That's like drill sergeant. So if you can give an example of that, what is that, like a drill sergeant leadership? Like, do this, otherwise you're going to get slapped. Or
Yeah, there's all sorts of different levels of coming in of do this. These are the consequences. Consequences aren't good or bad. They're just results, just a word for results.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's a dictatorship, it's typically dictator leadership is typically do this or else type of conversation. That was back in the management style was really prevalent back in the 80s, early 90s. Was we're just firing somebody to replace you. If you don't want to do it, you're just fired. It's no big deal. It's not personal. We'll just get somebody that will do the work.
Yeah.
So outside of dictatorship, then we have what's called mentorship, right? Okay. Mentorship is dictatorship. Then there's management where you're managing people, right? You're helping them through it. You're saying, all right, do this, do this, do this. Here are your 5 steps. Make sure you get these 5 steps done. When you're done with the 5 steps, come to me. Some people will call that micromanagement, right? Let me move you back to the center of my screen.
All good.
There we go. So we have that, and then the last one is collaborative leadership.
So number 1 is dictatorship leadership. Number 2 is management. Is number 3 mentorship then?
Number 3 is collaboration with mentorship inside of it.
Okay, collaboration. Right?
Yep. So when you're being in a collaboration, it's allowing a space for the person you're speaking or leading or mentoring or coaching to actually come with their ideas and being open to those ideas. Mm-hmm. Because as a leader is somebody, you were talking about the top 5. The very first one is humility, is knowing that you don't have all the answers. I don't care how long you've been doing it for, 100 years on the planet. I could talk to you for a moment and you could come up with an idea to completely change everything I've ever believed in. But if I'm not open to hearing it, it's just a big weight. I'm missing an opportunity of a life-altering moment. So when we talk about the collaborative style of leadership, it's not about letting your employees walk on you. It's about creating an open dialogue. It's creating a vulnerability in the conversation. So humility is absolutely the first one.
Vulnerability?
Humility, yes.
Oh, humility. Okay.
Yeah, humility. Tom Ziegler wrote a really great book called The 10 Virtues for Disruptive Times. And he talks about these 10 virtues. And he talks about kindness, humility, respect, persistence, selflessness, encouragement, positive expectations. I can put these in the chat if you want. Self-control, firmness, and hope. So when we look at these, it's like, well, which one stands out more than the rest? Well, if you can lead with humility, kindness comes afterwards. And if you have humility and kindness, respect creates itself, because now you have an open dialogue. It's not about you respecting me. It's about me giving you respect so I can receive respect back. Because no matter where we are in the hierarchy, we're still human beings at the same level. We just
That
have
is
a
so
hierarchy because
good.
you answer to me, and my responsibility inside of the company is more than yours. So I've got to answer to these people, right? And as as we sit there, we have I don't know what number I'm on, but persistence, right? Being persistent in how you're showing up and the attitude that you be inside of the company. And the attitude, leadership isn't just about work. This is about life. If you ask my wife who the leader of our household is, she would be like, "It's you." And if you ask me, I would say it's my wife. So we sit in this collaborative space of we have an open dialogue between each other, vulnerable enough that we both know that we don't know everything.
Yeah.
But together we know a whole lot more than just individuals.
This is so good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Aaron and I can totally relate to that. Because
Yeah.
I always look at her and I'm like, man, like she's such an amazing leader. And then when we talk, she's like, you're so much more highly skilled than I am.
It's so awesome.
And I'm like, no, I think you are. Okay, cool. So would you say the first skill is the ability to be humble regardless of where you're at?
Yeah. Paying attention.
Okay, love it. What about the other ones?
Oh, it's like putting them in order. So when we look at humility, then we have it's being in this place of kindness. It's when the stuff is hitting the fan at the office. I'm coaching a company right now that, excuse me, their biggest issue that they're dealing with is it's everybody else's job.
Mm.
So when we look at it, if I'm walking through my house and there's something on the floor, my old mentality before I learned all this stuff was, oh, I wonder if I'm being set up to fail right now.
Mm.
And when we look at it like that, it's like, what kind of leader am I being in my home? I'm acting as though my wife is my servant if I leave that on the ground. And it's the same thing in a business, even a manager. A manager can walk through and say, all right, so this person does the housekeeping, the services around the place, keeping the floors clean, the trash out, and all that kind of stuff. This person's in charge of making sure that the automobiles are on the platform, that they're clean, spotless, in the right place, and so forth, right? So if the trash isn't taken out and the manager sees it, instead of saying, hey, this should have been done at 9 o'clock. Why isn't it done? Or they can just pick up the trash can and walk it out to the thing and just dump it in there and say, hey, earlier I had to take the garbage out. Can you just make sure that one gets clean? And that's where the humility and the kindness comes into it.
Yeah.
It's not about, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, can you also just go a little dive deeper and talk about the correlation between in the coaching space, like how does a client or a student like portray humility in the form and how that affects their coachability?
So is the client or the coach?
Both.
Okay. So as a coach, this is a fun conversation. I'm glad you said deeper because this is where we're going to go.
Yeah.
So in a collaborative conversation, coming from humility, right? Checking our ego at the door, and kindness. When you look at it this way, it doesn't, by the way, kindness is also being stern and having to project your voice when your kids are being out of line. It's not about, you want your iPad? Here's your iPad. That's not kindness. It's different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's being a pushover. I know
Yes.
Brene Brown talks about like how vulnerability cannot be created without boundaries. So when you just said what you said, I'm like giving the iPad to a kid every single time they cry, like that's not setting a boundary.
Exactly.
So it actually it does not allow a cohesive relationship because
Beautiful.
vulnerability builds trust, and without trust, then like a relationship is going to be disrupted.
Exactly. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So when you look at it like this, when we're having a conversation with somebody, so say I'm the manager of the company and I'm leading, and an employee comes up to me with something. The moment that I categorize what's happening in a right wrong conversation, a good or bad conversation, or this should or shouldn't be happening, or judgment comes up, I am no longer allowing myself to be humble. I've just categorized the conversation and I've literally left it. So I'm not even present anymore. I'm already
Mm.
looking for an answer or looking to prove. And that's not leadership. That goes right back to the very first leadership style we talked about, and that it goes right back to domination and dictatorship.
Okay, so I'm thinking about you guys right now because I always do. And so something that I hear very, very often, I was talking with a dear friend whom I've coached. Now she's a part of our team, and she's come a long way in her transformation journey as well. And one of the things that she's discovered after like 4 years of being through the process is that how using the statement I should have been here, I should have been at this weight by now, or, I should have been able to, like do a pull up by now, is actually something that was really destructive. Can you elaborate a little more about how the shoulds actually take away our power from creating progress and growth in whatever it is we're pursuing?
Love this. So what a great setup. So in the woulda, shoulda, couldas and all these types of things, those are very disempowering, like you're just saying. I'm just going to read so I can kind of bring myself into the conversation. It's a very disempowering way of living. So I'm gonna take two different angles from this. Might be the shorter one.
Okay.
Is that when the moment that we use an excuse, validation, or reason, that we get a payoff in it. So the payoff could be all
What do you
kinds.
mean by that?
I'm just getting ready to say. So a payoff could be all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to be a positive payoff. It's just something we get from it.
Okay.
So a very good, for instance, like you're talking about, I should be able. I'll use myself. So like right now, our oldest son is catching up to me really fast in his strength, right? And I'm way bigger than he is. So I should be a lot stronger than him.
Mm.
So I can take that one of two different ways. Because I should be stronger than him, then what's wrong with me? So if what's wrong with me shows up in the should or shouldn't context, then I've got to figure out what's broken, what do I need to fix inside of me? Right. So then we start going down this rabbit hole of what's wrong with me. Well, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I'm too old now, and all these disempowering thoughts. Well, you can hear how that's not positive at all. It feels kind of really cruddy. However, the payoff is, if I'm never going to be strong enough, why bother trying? So I don't have to do the work. So the payoff is I don't have to do the work. And then I get to prove myself right that I haven't been able to do the work. Huh?
Wow. By either slacking or not pushing yourself to the next level, because now you're going to look for evidence for why you're right.
Bingo, right?
So good.
The cost. Well,
Yeah.
the cost is my mind space. Right?
Sure.
My mind space is going to drift into our workout conversation. And now my shouldn't turns into a frustration. And now my son's dealing with a frustrated dad. And who wants to deal with that? So that's the cost. It's a disconnection of the relationship. It's the same exact thing that happens in businesses and relationships everywhere.
Yeah, I also see, I see and hear a lot of parents also like raising their children with also the shoulds term. You should do this. You should have been here by now.
Yeah.
How does, so like for I know some of you guys are parents, so I really just want to touch up on this. How does that affect the evolution of a growing child?
There's an expectation they create in their minds that they think you have of them, and they're never going to meet it. So they're never enough.
They're never
enough. Their life never enough.
How many of you guys grew up in that environment? And maybe it doesn't matter what the scale is. It doesn't matter, like what like accolades you achieve. It doesn't matter whether or not you're like, either employee of the month or how well your business is doing. It's never good enough,
Yeah.
right? So just look at how destructive that can be. I've heard many of you guys, use terms of I should have, or another one is I feel behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Now is now. What makes you say you're feeling behind?
Yeah.
It's got to be that I should have, right? Because when you put the expectation of I should have, then you're expecting that, like, at this point in time, you would be somewhere. You know what I mean?
Let me jump back in for a second. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'll go down to the second avenue of it.
Okay.
So the should have, exactly what you were just saying. In fact, you helped me remember what I was going to say. The should have, or I should have, or the should have, should and shouldn't is such a powerful context. It also sits inside of right, wrong, good, or bad.
Uh-huh.
Right. So in the should have, it's being something that you're not. Right. So it's a story that we've created in our mind. So I should be stronger. I should be further. I should be making more money. I should be in a relationship. I should be a better dad or a mom or whatever. Right. So the moment we do that, we remove ourselves from the present moment of what you're saying, because you were just saying it's right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the only answer is, well, it's not. I should be doing more pull-ups. Well, you're not. So now what? See, I should or shouldn't be closes off the opportunity to create possibility. The moment you realize what is, I can do 3 pull-ups. Great. So now what? I want to do 4. What? Cool. So now what do we need to do for that? I should probably do 3 pull-ups and maybe go to failure on the lat pull-down machine until, or whatever. I'm not the trainer here. But the moment that comes in, we are shutting off possibility. But if you realize what actually is, like most people in the business arena, or we'll say sales, I'm not making the $10,000 a month that I need to make. I'm like, all right, so well, I should be doing that. Everybody else is, but you're not. But getting people to realize where they are is okay. And it's not a good or a bad thing of where you are. You simply are where you are in the moment. And there's nowhere to get to in this moment because it's 11:30 a.m. Eastern, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to do 11:30 a.m. on June 5th, that's fine. So what's your goal? It's not a should be there somewhere by then. It's what is my goal that I want to reach? Because the should is an expectation that you're not meeting. And I don't know about you, missing expectations, they feel kind of not the greatest.
They really do. So, okay. I quote John Maxwell all the time because I have like 20 books of his and I love him. You know that. And one of the powerful questions that he says, and we relay it to our people in the body transformation space is, like when they say, I should have been here by now. Like it's been 6 months and, I thought I would have dropped like a certain amount of weight. And, the reason why our method works is we focus on the controllables, which are the actions and decisions that we make every single day, right? The rate at which our body responds, there are, of course, a lot of variables, but the question that we teach our people to ask is instead of saying how fast will this happen to me, ask yourself, how far am I willing to go?
Yeah, I love it.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How far am I willing to go? Okay, so just real quick to close that loop, I want to make sure that I'm catching on to what you're saying. Are you saying that in order to unhook someone from the shoulda, coulda, woulda mentality, which is conditional, victim-like, really taking away our power, it's really, to say, but you're not. So what now?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that gets them into like a problem-solving like state of mind.
Yeah, it creates ownership.
Creates ownership.
Yeah, when we own where we are, then we can create something new.
So good. Write that down, you guys. When we own where we are, then we can create something new. So, like for example, one of the things that we do every single day is, in our programs, really our philosophy is we have 5 pillars: movement, nutrition, regeneration, discipline, and mindset. And every single day, we like, depending on where someone's at and where they're rated based on their behavior, they have an action step. We call it a target. And by the end of the day, they rate themselves with a 0 or a 1. And the reason why we do that is it's like to own where you are. A 0 does not mean that you're a 0. It's just about owning where you are. And I feel like actually what we just talked about, this mentality holds so strong, because one of the biggest things that holds people back is from really embracing this philosophy until they understand that, they are not a 0 if they score themselves a 0, is understanding that the numbers are really just feedback to own where we're at.
Right.
So real quick, going back to the skills that you've seen the top performers have, you've said humility was one of them. What were the other ones?
I said humility, kindness, and then we have respect.
Okay, respect.
There's 2 different ways to create respect in your life. You can create false respect by demanding it. And that's usually a version of fear. That's not respect. People do just enough to get by without you giving them lip, anger, yelling, whatever it is. True respect has to be given first. You've got to create, it's called creating freedom of self-expression, letting people be expressed. One of the shifts that I asked our boys probably 4 years ago, because it was right before the stuff that happened in 2020. And I asked them, what's it like when you go to your friends' houses? I'm like, so what's that like? They didn't know I was setting up for my question. And they said, man, it's usually a lot of yelling. Sometimes my friends get spankings. And I was like, wow, okay. At 10? Yep. All right, cool. 10 and 12 years old, still getting some spankings. Okay, got it. And I said, so how does that differ for here? And they said, you allow us to talk. So instead of going in their room and I asked them to clean their room and they didn't clean their room, instead of being upset and angry like they had this big mountain of disrespect they're throwing at their dad, I go, man, this doesn't look anything different than from before. What happened? Like, oh man, you know what? I got sucked into my video games. Sorry, I completely forgot. I'm like, wow, there are consequences from that. So the consequence is give me the controller. I'm like, okay. And they don't ask when they get it back, but we set the agreement there. I'm like, look, when you're done cleaning your room, come out. We'll have a conversation. We'll see if you get this back. No big deal. We let it go at that. So what that does is it opens up the dialogue. There's something that I use this in the corporate setting all the time. Our boys are really, at least as far as we know, they're very, very honest with us. And I caught our oldest lying to me. One summer, it was right after the stuff happened. He was in his bedroom and he was playing on his iPad. And when I went in there, he looked at it and like he heard me come in and face downed it on his bed. And I was like, oh, what's going on, man? And he's like, I was playing my game. I'm like, what's the agreement that we have? He's like, that there's no games until this. I'm like, all right. And I said, I'm gonna ask you the question. Just be honest. It's the first time this summer? And he goes, no. I'm like, so you've been dishonest with me for the last 2 months? Yeah. And I go, whew, give me a moment. I said, just give me a moment. Just hang out for yourself. And I left for like a minute and I had to get rid of my reaction to be responsive. So I came back in and so here's where it is. And this is where it sets in corporate, families, wherever, is that I created the space where he felt like he needed to lie.
So you were responsible.
I had to be responsible. Who else would be? So
Wow.
having that respect. So I told him, I said, hey, so I got to be responsible for you being dishonest with me. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, if you just told me what you wanted in the very beginning, this whole conversation wouldn't be happening at all. But for some reason, I created a space where you could come to me.
Wow.
So that's, the ownership in it. So after respect would be ownership. How do you own yourself in your organization of leadership?
How do you own yourself? Okay, love that. And what's the last one?
Hope.
Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give an example of hope?
No question. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working with a company right now. They've got 160 some employees. And the question came up is, what are you going to do when the next something happens? Because something's going to happen again. I mean, we live in the world of the world. You
Change.
can't, it's going to happen. Change occurs.
Uh-huh.
So what are you going to do when the next time a change happens? It's a very nice way to say it. Change happens. And they said, well, that's a good question. It's like, well, what did you do? And the question came up. It was Tom Ziegler asked the question. Like, well, what did you do before? He's like, well, we did all this stuff. As soon as everybody got the phone call in March, right? Or at least March, it was about March of 2020. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets the phone call or a text, right? You got it somewhere. You probably knew where you were. And they said, well, the first thing we did was we assessed and then we pivoted.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so what are you going to do next time? He goes, oh, we're going to assess and pivot.
Yeah.
The question was, do your employees know that? Oh, no. So could you let them know that you already have a plan that's not formulated to put into place in case change occurs again? And what that's doing is that's creating hope.
Yeah.
Right now, the unfortunate thing that we're living in our society is that there's changes occurring so rapidly, and it's getting faster that sometimes it's hard to keep up. It's like, I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone by the weekend.
True.
But if I told you, no matter what happens to it, we are going to create something together, and we're going to get through this together. This is where the collaboration comes in. This is where the humility comes in, the respect comes in, kindness, selflessness, and so forth. Yeah. So when you're creating hope with your people, whether it's and our boys know that I am not a superhero. Sometimes they think I am, but I am nowhere near a superhero. But no matter what happens, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to protect my family. Yeah. Everything. I will do everything that I can come up with, and then I'm going to tap into other people. Yeah. When you're in your gym, your people come to you because they know that by working with you, that they're going to create something that they couldn't create on their own. So you're creating hope in them. 1,000. So when you're creating hope in somebody, they show up differently. Mm-hmm. Hopelessness is powerlessness, and powerlessness creates breakdowns. And in breakdowns, that's where we go back to before, where you start sabotaging yourself, procrastination shows up. The payoff is I don't have to do it, and then I get to prove myself right. But the cost is happiness and freedom and joy and purposeful lives and being fulfilled.
Mm. Yeah. That's why a lot of people struggle with emotional eating as well.
I identify with that.
Right? Because so for those of you guys listening, like a breakdown is, when you're leading in a way, whether it's with yourself or with other people, that is not in alignment with where it is that you want to go, right? So it's like, if you know that a tub of ice cream is not gonna, let's say, help you to have a 6-pack by July, then a breakdown is I've had some kind of trigger today and I wasn't able to manage myself and manage my mind. So instead I ended up going to the freezer and grabbing a tub of ice cream to numb the feelings, right? So hope is like knowing that you'll be able to overcome this trigger, whatever happened, and not self-sabotaging. So good. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom. I have two powerful questions that I want to ask you. And then if you guys have any other questions, then please go ahead and drop it in the chat as well. My question to you is, I want to know from you, what have you seen, or have you seen any evidence just from, the people that you've worked with? What is there a common denominator between how people take care of their physical well-being and how they show up for other areas of their lives, be it as parents or in their organization or in their business?
Mm, yes, there's a direct correlation. And I'm gonna so if those that are listening right now is like, uh-oh, don't uh-oh this. Most people don't even know.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. I'll use something like my desk. I had a coach one time say to me, we're having a great conversation. He says, "What does your desk look like?" I'm like, "Oh, it's brown, it's oak." He's like, "No, what does it look like? If you were to observe it right now, what would it look like?" I'm like, "Well, I have several coffee cups from the week." I said, "I've got my breakfast plates, my dinner, lunch, and like there was a pile. It was like I had my own kitchen in here." And he goes, "Can I see it?" And I'm like, "I did a good job describing it." And he goes, "Take your camera off and show me." And I was like, "Oh, all right." So I showed him. He goes, "How do you see yourself in what you're seeing in your desk?"
Oh, so
And I
good.
was like, "Son of a gun, man." I'm like, that landed. I said, "I've constantly said the words I'm disorganized." And then I created the world to live in. This was several years ago. So when we're looking in the mirror, and I don't, it doesn't matter who you are, we're great at picking out our flaws. It's really easy.
Yeah.
But when we're looking in the mirror and we're seeing ourselves and we're not where we want to be, this goes back to what we're talking about. That you are just where you are. It's just that's all. It's walking up to the starting gate of the track. You have to get there sooner or later. You got to stand there and look at your journey. Even if you've already come on one, you're always at a starting point.
Yeah.
But when we look in the mirror and we see ourselves, we only see where we're not. So when we see ourselves in a place of overweight or out of shape or however we want to describe ourselves where we think we should be, right? Here's that word should again.
Yeah.
What that does is it doesn't allow us to see us for all the amazing attributes that we have. I don't care who you are in the world. You were born for greatness. That's just the way it is. It doesn't matter what you were born into or your circumstances of growing up. You were born as a caring, giving, loving, serving person. I believe that is how everyone is designed on the planet. And sometimes, like me, I really like ice cream and brownies and cookies and Snickers bars. I like all the stuff that I know is so bad for me. So I don't have it in the house. I mean, I just don't even have it. It's just easier just to just not have it around, right?
Yep. Same.
But I also, when we're talking about, it's like, well, back when I was 260 pounds, I can take a look and was like, well, I'm 260. What's another bowl of ice cream going to matter? Who cares? I'm not, what does it matter anymore? And that, what does it matter anymore when it comes to our physical selves? We also, the excuses, reasons, and validations that we give ourselves, we also let our community around us get away with the exact same thing. Whether it's as a parent or a brother or sister or a friend or a leader in a business. The stuff that we allow ourselves to get away with, we will also allow the people in our lives to get away with it as well.
So
we won't
good.
say anything. But the moment you step into the greatness you were born to have, that you already have, that you have inside of you, the moment you step into that greatness is the moment that your life shifts so dramatically. And you don't even notice that it's happening until all of a sudden somebody says, "There's something different about you. What's going on?" It's like, "Oh, I don't know." Then when you assess it, you're like, "Oh, that's really crazy. Back in June, I made this decision that I'm going to step into my own greatness. That I'm tired of living into these reasons of validations that I've given myself to let my body go." See, I believe our bodies are a temple. It's how we represent.
Yep.
See, people are going to judge you, and we know this because we judge everybody. I mean, let's face it, we're human beings, right? As soon as we see somebody, we're like, "Oh, categorized," right? And then, if you haven't been where they are, that usually the categorization is a lot harsher. But when you've been where they are, you see them differently.
So
So
good.
there's a lot of things happening in that conversation where you just asked me about our self-image.
Yeah.
Our self-image is only created by how we think we should be. It's never how we are.
Who is it who said you don't see life for what it truly is? You see life as you are. I don't know who created that quote, but yeah, totally resonates. So, one more question for you. And let's say if a person's like, okay, like here's the thing, ES Army, you guys all know that you're meant for greatness. That's why you're here. And you're all pursuing your greatness, especially if you're part of the $1 Million Body Society. And my question to you is when someone's like, okay, I'm ready to take myself on and I want to become a person of influence, like what is one thing that they can do starting today?
So they want to take charge of their own life and step into leadership. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just step up their influence, whether it's their influence towards themselves, their influence towards their kids, or whatever roles that they play in life.
Okay. There's a very powerful Ziegler quote. You can have anything you want. You've got to you have to do it, but first you have to be.
First, you have to be.
You've got to be. So it's being the person that's deciding to step into it. So once
So
you decide to do it, that is the most important, and it's also the first step.
I love it.
So if you want to, so it's like, well, I want to be an influencer. All right, cool. So who are you as the influencer?
Yeah.
It's not about your physical attributes. That's going to come. It's not about the words that you speak. That's going to come. But what are your qualities? What are the qualities of the leader that you want to be? Not some, I mean, you can choose it from somebody you emulate or whatever. You can actually use Sorette if you want to, or Aaron. You can use them both.
Mm-hmm.
You can borrow their qualities until you start creating your own. But if your
Yeah.
quality is I want to be humble. I want to lead from a servant's heart. I want to
Yeah.
really care about people. I want to be an encourager. I want to be I want to bring hope to people, but I also want to be firm in my kindness. It's like, all right, so what's that mission statement for you? So if you can create a one sentence mission statement. Somebody asked me the other day, what do I do? Why do I do what I do? Like, what's your mission statement? I'm like, I love people. It's like, oh, what does that mean? I'm like, everything I do, does it fit into I love people?
Mm.
Like when I coach somebody, I love them. So love is harsh sometimes.
Yeah.
So who do you want to be in the life that you want to have? And then the doing part just starts taking care of itself.
So good. I can totally resonate. I remember when I met my other self after my dad's heart attack.
Mm.
I was, just like a hot mess express. And, I was just like on a roller coaster ride, like just yo-yo dieting, the whole shebang. And at that point, I got super clear on who I did not want to be. And that allowed me to get clear on who I wanted to be. And I'm like, okay, well, how does a fit person live? Instead of trying to get wrapped up in the mechanics, I think something that is really easy to get wrapped up in these days, especially in the information era, is the mechanics. You know what I mean? Like instead of thinking, who do I need to be, right? Like, how does that person live? Because deep down, when it comes to, like, let's say your health, we all know that eating like a green salad with grilled chicken is going to be better for us than eating a cheeseburger, right? But why is 78% of this country either overweight or morbidly obese? It's because like we're not focusing on the being, we're focusing on the mechanics. And that's why meal plans simply just don't work. So good. So I just put up your quote. Thank you for that. Okay, so we have a question here. And if you guys have any other questions, please go ahead and drop it because we're going to take questions. So Jennifer asked, what is a better option to use than the word should?
I love it. So this is where I want to be.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Jennifer, like like I'm coaching you, so I kind of know where you're at. But what if you're like, dude, but I don't like where I'm at?
No, I didn't say now. This is where I want to be here. in the place of should, You're either placing yourself in a past version of yourself
Uh-huh.
or some future version of yourself, and praying and hoping and wishing that it was now, but doesn't change what is now. I prescribe to a statement, and I heard this 11 years ago, almost to the day. Oh, it's really weird. It's kind of uncanny. And the statement is, there's nowhere to get to.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't mean you don't have goals or wishes or what you want. It has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Because at 11:53 a.m. Eastern on June 4th, there's nowhere to get to right now. I'm only here.
Wow.
The moment we become complete with that, there's no more shoulds or coulds or wishes or anything like that. There's only what's now.
Wow.
So if I wish I should be somewhere else, what's that confirming?
That you're not living in the moment, that you're not actually embodying this statement.
Yeah, right on. And when we say that, how does that make you feel?
Behind, not enough.
Cruddy.
Yeah.
Just crappy. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, it's noon. I might as well go eat. And I can't work out what I'm eating after I eat because I'll throw up. And then it'll be dinner time. That's okay. I'll just do it tomorrow. And then Monday comes rolling around.
Huh? Oh gosh, so good.
So there's just nowhere to get to. We're always only here. We're always only here. And then from here, if there's nowhere to get to, there's no woulda, shoulda, couldas, or right, wrongs, good, bads, or anything like that. There's only, what do I want to create from now?
Would you say that that is one of the most complicated thing for people to grasp in the performance world?
Yeah.
Because performance is all about reaching a new height. And it's the silver lining of no, there's nowhere to reach to. And
only now, though.
Now, yeah, right. Now, and the pursuit of reaching new heights. That's amazing. Super deep.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, Steve, if someone wants to connect with you on a deeper level or just study a little bit more of your work, where can they find you or how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I wrote I think I have it right here. I was looking for it earlier. I came in, here it is. So I wrote this. It's it's an easy read. It's super little. It's called Road Trip.
Road Trip.
Yep. And if you look on the back here, that's Tom Ziegler right there. Right there. That's Zig Ziglar's son. Him and I co-wrote this together. And this is literally designed to take you from where you are to where you want to be. So if you go to, can I put a link? Is that what that works?
Please go for it.
Yeah. So it's stevekrivda.com/motivated. And you'll get my book. There it is.
I got you.
You got me already? You're so awesome.
I got you.
Yeah. So if you go there, you're gonna get this book and take it serious. I mean, there's a wheel of life in here. It's gonna tell you exactly where you are in the 7 different areas of your life. And then what that is that walks you up to the starting gate. And then you can create from that spot. Because it's a wheel. You're going to have a flat tire. Just so you know, everybody has a flat tire. It's no big deal. Yeah. It's about, well, what do I want to do with this flat tire? And it walks you through that. And it's 36 pages. It's really simplistic to read. There's a little bit about me, a little bit about Tom, and why we wrote this book together. And there's also the How to Stay Motivated audio series. It's 7 days. You'll get 1 audio a day for the next week. And that's Zig Ziglar speaking. Those are fun. Those are from the 70s and 80s, so you get a good kick out of the recordings.
By the way, if you guys don't know who Zig Ziglar is, he was known for being a historic, world-renowned sales coach. But really, what he is he's a leader of leaders. Thank you so much for your time and for the gift of your presence today. Truly appreciate you. Just know that you've added a lot of value today. Yeah.
That's thank you for that. I appreciate you for allowing me to be in front of your audience.
Yeah.
I know you don't take it lightly because, like you had mentioned to me last time we talked, you love your people. And so I don't take this time lightly, and your time, this is the most valuable commodity we have on the planet is time.
1000%.
And so thank you for you and what you're doing, the impact you're creating. You and Aaron are just freaking awesome. I went on your pages and checked you all out, man. I just dig you, what you're doing. It's just so fun. So thank you for that. It's just an honor to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, we love what we do for sure. And thank you for your time. And you guys, thank you for your time. Remember, there's nowhere to be then. Okay, I'm butchering it, but let me make sure I get this right. So feel free to say it again. There's nowhere to be except for right now.
There's nowhere to be now.
There's nowhere to be but now, and keep reaching to the moon, you guys.
Yes.
You're all fabulous. Steve, thank you so much for your time today. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and happy Transformation Tuesday.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Awesome.